Good morning.
Good morning.
This is another Christian artist morning, huh? So hopefully you are all bright and shining after being in the bar so late yesterday. Okay. For communication, the ones in the back, come up a little bit because that is easier for the speaker. The speaker is Lasma Licite. I always hope I pronounce it in the right way. It's more or less. Maybe your name is easier to pronounce as my name because it's French and nobody speaks French in Holland anymore. Anyway, from Latvia. And last year she was as well with us and she did a marvelous job. And then she's on the speakers list of Christian artists and she signed up for the subject of this morning. So we really look forward what she's going to bring. So a warm hand for Lasma.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here, already the second year. To be honest, last year I didn't know what to expect, where I'm going actually, so it was kind of a surprise. Then this year actually I'm coming with very warm feelings to meet people I met last year. And as I told to my friends in Latvia who asked me, where are you going, what you will gonna do? I said, I will go for 1 week meditation because this seminar is really like meditation for my soul and for my brain. So thank you for this opportunity to be here again. But despite this, the topic today is quite hard, income distribution in society. But I will try to focus on what you can do as self-employed artists to make the world a bit better place, to make society more equal. Because the topic is really quite hard. As I was talking on Saturday evening with Aaron, when he asked me what you were going to talk about, I said, oh, very depressive topic, income distribution in society. And he said, it's easy. There are just few people who own the whole world, and the rest, they are just poor people. Well, I would like to say that he's not right, but unfortunately, this is the reality that really 8 men owns the same wealth as the poorest half of the world. It's like we are swimming in the same glass of the water, but some of us are above the water and some of us are below the water. But majority probably are somewhere in the middle of this glass. But the bad thing is that actually last 25 years the situation hasn't changed, at least for those who are at the bottom of the glass. And we can say, yes, there was economical growth, different economical indicators are increasing, like GDP, etc. But it doesn't influence the situation for those who are poor. Yes, it influences those people who are rich. If you look on just some simple numbers, then the incomes of the poorest 10% of people has increased just by $3 per year during the last 25 years, while the incomes of the richest 1% increased 180 times. So, seems terrible, and actually it means that the society cannot be stable if there is so huge gap between poor and rich people. And these inequalities we can see also within companies, within corporations. Here's just one example that, for example, the CEO of India's top information firm earns 600 times higher salary than typical employee in the company. And from one side we can say, oh, at least those who are at the top, they can feel happy, they can feel satisfied with their life, so at least for them everything is okay. But unfortunately, it's not so easy because we are all linked together. The problems which are around, they influence us as well. Let me give you just one example. Few months ago, I was in India, where I met very different people. Those who are very poor and those who are rich, those who live a good life. And I had one conversation with a man who is owner of one agency. So he lives quite good life, and we can say that, oh, he can be happy. But actually, he said me, Lasma, you know, it's not so easy. You know, okay, I have 4 new cars, I have beautiful house, I have apartment in New Delhi, I have beautiful wife, I have beautiful 3 children. So more or less I have everything. But where's the problem? He's afraid to leave. Because he's afraid to leave his family somewhere in the car, even for a few minutes, because you never know who can come and who can make harm for the family. And that's because the people are poor, they don't have what to eat sometimes, so they will do everything just to survive. So we see that actually the poor people will influence all of us. So we have to do something to change this situation. Also, he told to me, just don't go somewhere alone, especially in the evening. There can happen anything to you. I said, what can happen with me? Come on. And he said, well, actually, there can happen anything. You can be robbed, you can be raped, or you can be eaten. So the third scenario seems crazy, but it's just because people are so poor. There are so big difference between those who are rich and those who are poor. So it's not a normal society. It's not stable society. So what we can do? We can wait that there will be help from the government. We can wait. We can wait that there will be help from the trade unions. We can. We can wait that maybe those big corporations will help to solve these problems because their revenues are incredible. Their revenues sometimes are equal with the budget of some state. We can wait. But I'm not sure, is it very wise to wait for something? If we again look on just some data on huge corporations like Apple, I guess we all know, some of us use the products of Apple. The huge corporation with great profit, but they spend only 5% of their revenues for the cost of labor. It would be nice if they could share their profit more for the people, for their employees, but it's not happening. And again, we can wait for the better times, but during that time, a lot of people die from the famine. And just to show the situation, when we think about poor people, we probably imagine something like this. This is really the deeper point of the poverty. The picture probably a lot of you have seen before because it was very popular in 1994 when Kevin Carter got the Pulitzer Prize of this picture. The picture which shows the poverty in Africa. You can see the child who is trying to move to the campus where he will get a food. Behind him is standing the bird who is waiting the moment when he will stop walking. And again, we can say, that's okay, that's Africa, and it's not in Europe, but still we are linked together. We are linked together with our problems, and we have to solve these problems together. And I strongly believe that artists are those people who can help to solve these different problems, who can show these problems, as here we can see. And this frustration generated by the poverty cannot make society stable, and it cannot make in society peace. So what we have to do, we have to make economy for the 99% of people, not for 1%. Seems very strong words, I understand, and probably a lot of you now are thinking, I'm too small, I cannot change the world. It's not for me, and even maybe somebody are thinking, I will never be self-employed because I'm too small. It's not for me. Bless you. If you think so, then you have to sleep with a mosquito in one room, and then you will understand that you are not too small to make a difference in the world. And sometimes you just have to start to do something, and you will see that you can make the changes in the world. Because the poverty, this situation, this gap between poor and rich people is not made by poor people. It's made by the system we have designed by ourselves. And I will give you one example how one man, Muhammad Yunus, who is Nobel Peace Prize winner, tried to make a world better place. How he tried to give for people opportunity to change their lives. Well, he comes from the very poor country, from Bangladesh, but he had the opportunity to study in USA, where he got a degree in economics, and he decided to come back to his home country, to Bangladesh, to make it a better place for people to live. And he decided to work in Chittagong University to teach economy and different economical theories. But unfortunately, the time when he went back to Bangladesh was very difficult for the country, for the people. There was a civil war, there was famine, and different problems. And he understood that there is no sense to teach economical theories in the place where people don't have what to eat, what to wear. So, and none of these theories can explain the situation, why people are so poor, why there's so huge gap between them. So what he did, he started to make an investigation in one village to understand why people are so poor. It was a Jobra village, and he saw that there are a lot of people who are willing to become self-employed, who are willing to make carpets, to make clothes, to do some nice things. In some way, they are also like artists. But what was the problem? If you want to start a business, what do you need? Money. If you are a poor person, who will give you money? Nobody. If you have minimum wage, you will go to the bank and ask for the loan. What they will gonna say to you? Sorry, yeah, I'm not sure that you will gonna pay back. What is another opportunity? In Latvia, we have very popular movement, those so-called fast credits, that you can take quickly the loan, but you have pay very high interest. The same was in Bangladesh. Those poor people, they took money from the local money lenders, but they put very high interest rates. And also they put requirement that you have to sell this carpet or the dress for the price I want. So they could work as hard as they want. They could not go out from this poverty cycle. He made a list of all those people who have taken the money from the local money lenders. In total, there were 42 people who borrowed $27 in total. Only $27 made life for 42 people miserable. So what he did, he just took the money from his pocket and gave for those people. Of course, they were happy, thankful, but what is the problem? What will happen next month? The same. They will ask again money from the local money lenders. So what he understood that we have to search for the solution for the problems which are more sustainable. And what he did, he started his conversation with the traditional bank, and he said that he will guarantee that those people will give money back. Bank said, okay. And on 1976, they started to provide microcredits to the poor people, that they can become self-employed and that they can make their own small business. The idea worked quite well. The poor people gave money back, but the problem was the bank didn't see a huge business in this. Imagine, there are coming a lot of people who are borrowing $2, $10, $3. What's a business? It's not business for the bank. So they said, we will stop doing this. So Muhammad Yunus was again in the starting point. Again, the same problem, what to do. And he understood that if you will wait from somebody, from the corporation, from the government, you will wait for a long time. You have to do something by yourself. And what he did, he made a Grameen bank, the bank which provides microcredits for the poor people. And nowadays, this is a huge bank with 8 million borrowers. And what is interesting, the owner of this bank is not Muhammad Yunus or his friends. The owners are those poor people who actually take this money and also who give this money back. And this bank actually helps to open the potential of the poor people. It provides opportunity for them to make their own business, and in the same time, it reduces poverty. And he saw the situation that, for example, one family, the son became the doctor in medicine because he got a loan from the Grameen Bank, but his mother, she couldn't read. She couldn't write, because she didn't have such opportunity to make her life different. And I like one sentence what Muhammad Yunus has said. You can take the best seed from the biggest, strongest bonsai tree. You will put it in the soil, but the result depends not from the seed you put in the soil, but from the soil. So it means that what will be the ground, the soil, for you to open your potential. And this is, of course, what we expect from the government, from the trade unions, that they will make circumstances for us to do something easier, better, but sometimes you just have to do something, you have to struggle with all the system to change it. And sometimes it's very hard, and people say that self-employment, it's just for the crazy people. It's not for me, because it's very hard, and especially when I show this slide that the incomes usually for self-employed are much lower than for traditional employees. These are data from UK, and we can see how the economical situation has changed the incomes of self-employed people. Then very often people say, no, self-employment, it's not for me. It's totally not for me. But there are millions of people who are willing to become self-employed, who are willing to make startups. Who are they? Millennials, or Generation Y, who will compromise the majority of the workforce by 2020. Some of you probably remember this from the last year. For those who don't, I will just remind that millennials, this is a generation which is born between 1980s to 2000. I see there are such people between you as well. And what does it mean? This is just different generation with different way of thinking. For them, it's more important to work for themselves, not for somebody, not for companies, but for themselves. For them, it's more important to have flexible working time. For them, it's more important to see the meaning of the work, why I'm doing this. And if I compare MBA students these days and 10 years ago, then I can say that 10 years ago, students were more willing to work in those huge corporations like Apple, IBM, and others. But nowadays, they are more willing to do something by themselves. It can be even something very small, but which belongs to them. So they are willing to do this. And that's why more and more students and more actually those young people are saying that they are planning to leave their existing companies to do something by themselves. 2 in 3 expect to leave by 2020. And probably because they see the real face of these huge corporations, the greasy face of how they work. And that's why they prefer to do their own business, the job which gives them happiness, joy, and where they see the meaning. Yes, they understand that maybe they will earn a bit less, but still, it's more important that you do what you really love, what is important for you. And if we compare again the self-employment rate between millennials and their predecessor, Generation X and Generation Baby Boomers, then again, millennials are more willing to make their businesses and to become self-employed, comparing with the previous generations. Because if you look on these characteristics for the previous generations, for them, it's more important to have a stable work, to have stable income. But for the millennials, it's very important to have the joy, to see the meaning of what they are doing. And I strongly believe that when you are doing what you really love, what you really like to do, then your incomes will increase. Of course, we have to take into consideration what Alexandra told us yesterday, that you have to have not only a big dream, but you have to make a schedule and you make a purpose, how you will, and the steps how you will achieve this purpose. And then actually it's possible that your incomes will increase. And still, a lot of people still think that self-employment it's not for me, because I will never survive financially. How I will pay my bills as self-employed person? Well, the good thing is that self-employment actually means that you will never be unemployed ever. And what else? Sometimes actually self-employment is the only way how to become employed. Let me give you again one example. I had one student who was attending the social entrepreneurship course. After graduation, she returned to her home village because she had an old grandmother. She couldn't live alone, so she was forced actually to go back. And she understood that there are not a lot of opportunities to work. Her parents were in Norway. It's quite a typical situation when part of the family in Latvia moves somewhere for the work. But she had to go to take care of her grandmother. So what she did, she understood that her grandmother, yes, she is old lady, but she has a brilliant talent, and actually she can do something very useful. And what she did, this girl, she employed her grandmother and her friends, because they are very strong in handcrafts, and they made knitted socks. And what is more important, knitted socks with Norway ornaments. Because she sent those socks to the Norway, where live her parents, and then they sent for the selling in the Norway market. So she found the opportunity even in so hopeless situation. So you have to look on the problems sometimes as on opportunities. So she found and she made a job for herself, for grandmother, and for grandmother friends as well. Also, very often we think that, well, yeah, it's just my hobby, and it's not a good way how I will pay my bills. Okay, sometimes it's really, I think, a good idea that you can work in a company, IT company, and where you can earn stable money and you can do your hobby. But sometimes there is one moment when the work starts to disturb your hobby. And then you have to choose what to do to continue work in the stable work, which you maybe also you like that work, but or you are planning to do something more related with your hobby. And here's again one story connected with my friend. She was a primary school teacher, and she really loved theater. She played theater, and she also organized some classes for the pupils. But after the school, she very often organized some events for the children. Some birthday parties, Christmas parties, and different events, also wedding parties. And while she had only one children, she could do both of these works. When she had the third child, it became very hard to do both of these things. So she had to choose school or hobby. So she risked, and she became self-employed. So she organized those different events for the children. She's doing really the work she loves, and she was, I would say, she was quite successful. But it's not only about success. She was a good professional in this field, and she had a high demand. And there was one moment when she understood that she actually cannot cover all the and she needs some help. Again, yesterday we heard that sometimes you need to ask for the help. And the help can come from the friends. Like, I'm her friend. So she called to me and she said, can you help me to do some events? So yes, this is me in those pictures, in both of them. More I love to be a princess, but more I feel like a clown, especially when I work in university in front of my students. Quite often I feel like I have to do my cloning to make the lectures more interesting. But the fact is that from the clown to princess there is only one step. The same as from the hobby to your self-employment, there is sometimes only one step. You just have to make this step and make it real. Also, one more story about quite famous photographer in Latvia. She was working for more than 10 years in a bank sector. She was manager of the sales and later on marketing. But you know how it is to work in a huge corporations. It's very hard work. You have to run sometimes 12 hours per day. She felt very tired of all this, and she decided to change something in her life, and she decided to spend more time on her hobby. She liked to make photographies. Her models were her children, and she was quite successful, and she got some awards last year or 2 years ago. And as a result, she said that actually living slowly makes life longer. Okay, one more story. Have you ever seen such freak bikes on the streets or somewhere in the pictures? Nice hobby, right? In Latvia, we have such a movement. It's quite popular, where guys are making those freak bikes, very strange ones. But under this movement, there was created a social business which makes bicycles for people with disabilities. So special design, which is made for people in need. So you never know in which moment your hobby can turn to the business. And it can be very actually useful way how you can help to the society for those who need your help. Also, very often people say, especially in arts, oh, I have to be very extra innovative to be successful, because there are so many people who are creative. And what can I do such that to be successful? Probably you have asked this question to yourself, right? And you have thought how it is to think out of the box. Well, you can try to think out of the box, but actually there is no need to think outside the cage, because there is no cage. You have to just look around and you have to fly, and you will see that there are no borders. And where can you find this creativity or innovative elements? Just look what people need. And sometimes it's something very simple they need. For example, those who come from the Holland, do you have such cover for your bicycle? Something very, very simple, very, very practical. But if you put great design, and if it can work, and it can work very well, you can spread not the dirt, but you can spread the love in your room. So sometimes the innovative element can be very, very small. Also, you can be innovative in a way that you are trying to solve some kind of problem in society. You can try to solve some environmental problems. Like here, there is a company who recycle the bottles and make beautiful design products. So imagine this evening you will go to the bar, you will drink your beer or wine, and then you can ask for this bottle, and you can take it home and ask for example, that company that they make some beautiful design products from this bottle, which gives you so good memories of this week. So they will make the glasses or something like this. Just recycling. So it's the way of art which gives add value to the environment. Or newspapers. We have a lot of newspaper waste. People are reading newspapers and then they are just throwing them away. Again, as an artist, you can give a new life for newspapers. Why not a new shoes? Or sculptures? Or paintings, something like that. So you can be innovative if you try to solve some problems in society. Environmental problems or problems which are related with some groups. Like, for example, there are a lot of disabled people who are willing to work but who usually cannot find a job. And of course, their incomes are much lower than for those who have a job. But still, they have great motivation to do this. And again, you don't need maybe to invent something completely new, but you can be innovative with the fact that you help for some people when you produce your products. For example, here you can see more or less simple mugs, but these mugs are made by disabled people. So again, this is like add value for your products. You can be innovative in that way. Or if you look on a different sector, books. I know that there are a lot of people who are writers, and here you also can see a book. From one side, very simple book for children, but this is the book which is made by blind people. They wrote the story, and they also made pictures. In total, there are 4 books in 3 languages, in Latvian, in English, and in Russian. And what is interesting, you can read this book also in Braille. So again, just simple book, but book with a heart, with add value. And I think what is also important that when you have a good product, you have to move forward. You have to invent something again new. And then it's good if you can take something from already existing product and then turn it into the new opportunity. What these guys found out after making the book, they saw that these heroes of the book are quite popular and the children like them. So they decided to make for them a new life. So they made a porcelain plate on which you can see one of the heroes of the book. I don't know, it's a cat or tiger. But it's not just a plate with a drawing, it's a plate with a cartoon. How it works. So first of all, those who have children, they know that very often children, we have to motivate them to eat whole plate because they are eating a little bit and then they are, I don't want any more. So we have to motivate somehow. And this is a very motivating plate because you can say, if you will eat everything, first of all, you will see the picture. But if you will eat everything, you will eat the cartoon. Because with the help of this overlay application, you can watch the cartoon on this plate in your mobile phone. So the plate with a cartoon. I think quite a good idea how to motivate children to eat and in the same time how to sell the works of blind people who have made these drawings. And also, probably all of you have made exhibitions, not all of you, but a lot of you. And very often we are afraid that, please just don't touch my drawing with the hands. But they organized a special exhibition which was exactly with such a motto that touch exhibition. Because the exhibition was made by blind people. And you could even read in a braille what is written on this painting. So again, art, just in a different form, the art which helps to solve problems of different groups of people, in that case, blind people. Also, if we talk about museums, about exhibitions, maybe some of you have been in Austria in this museum, Dialogue in the Darkness. No. So what it is, it's a museum, it's an exhibition, which is made for people to understand the blind people. So it was a few years ago when I was in Austria, and I had the possibility to visit this exhibition. And the idea is that when you will go there, you will receive the stick, and you will try to discover the world of darkness. When I went to this exhibition, first of all, I was quite confused. And one of the girls from our group, she asked, can I go out if I won't feel well? I thought, well, we all have been in the darkness, so what's so strange there? But when I went in, I understood her question. Because it's really total darkness where you go in, you don't see anything. You just hear the voice of the guide, who is a blind person, and who is saying, so, no, we will cross the street. No, we will go for the shopping. And of course, 100 ideas comes in your mind. You are thinking how blind people can buy something. Of course, there is made everything in a very simple way. You touch different things. And at the end, I said, we will go to the bar. And you can read something, what you want to drink. Of course, we couldn't read. But the idea of all this came from this man, Andrea Heineke, who saw the problem that very often we have different attitude to people who are a bit different. He was working as a journalist in radio, and he had an interview with one guy who was young, 28 years old, but who was blind. And he understood that it's very hard to speak with him, not because of this guy, but because of himself, because we don't know how to act in such situations. But that's not normal. We are all human beings, and it should not be like that. So that's why he made this exhibition to make less barriers and to make also the world more equal, that we can understand each other a bit better. So, what else? One more example. Do you recognize this guy? Yes, exactly, that's Sting. But the question is why I put him in my presentation. Well, the answer could be I like his music, but this is not that case. Actually, I put him in my presentation not because of his music, but because of the t-shirt he's wearing. You will ask, so what's so specific in his t-shirt? Simple t-shirt, nothing very innovative. I totally agree with you, partly. But this is the t-shirt which, again, gives add value for the society. Each t-shirt you buy from that company gives water, access to the water and medical aid for the single women in South Africa and for their children. So if you buy this t-shirt, you help for somebody. And again, the same thing. From one side, it's nothing very innovative, just simple t-shirt, not very specific design, but the idea behind is much more stronger because it helps also to make society much better place. And why it is necessary? Why it is necessary maybe to focus on women, okay, in Africa, but in general, if we look, then women earn less comparing with men. And this is not the only problem of Africa. It's a bigger problem, actually, because even in developed countries, women earn less. This again shows this income gap. So you can find your way by helping to somebody with the help of art. Sometimes people also say that, but I don't have the education in arts, or I don't have education in business, so if I want to become self-employed, or if I want to make a startup, I need something from that. If you have education in arts or in business, congratulations, it's great. But sometimes it's not necessary. Sometimes you can learn by doing. And here you can see again one example in Latvia. This is a small company, very small, who produce rugs. And they produce those rugs from textile waste. There are a lot of companies who produce clothes, but they have a lot of waste. They don't know where to use. And two girls just decided to make a small company and to make beautiful design rugs and to sell them. And what is even more important, they were two girls who just, why they decided to make such a business? Because they saw again a problem. They saw the problem that they have mothers who were already more or less in retirement age, but still wanted to work. So they just employed her mothers and made beautiful design products. And they didn't have any education in arts or in business, but the business was successful because they really strongly believed to their idea and they just made it. And one more example that you actually don't need education, at least not always in education and in arts and business. Here you can see a beautiful Latvian teddy bears, I call them Latvian teddy bears, made from the wool, very nice ones, and they are made by blind people. And the idea came from one girl who wasn't designer, she wasn't an entrepreneur, she just had a huge desire to help for those people, to give them opportunity to change their life, to give them opportunity to earn some money, extra money. And she found that it could be a good business. She just found the students from the art academy who helped to make the design. And in this strong collaboration, what we heard yesterday again, that we have to make this collaboration with other people. You can make beautiful things, and what is even more important, you can make a world a better place. So sometimes you just have to discover unknown things, because there always will be something you don't know. Just try to do this. And at the end, I would like to say that if you are self-employed, you are a business and you are your brand. You are a brand in the same time. And it's just up to you. It's your mission to choose what you want to do. Do you want to make a comfy life, world domination, or you want to make a better place for people to live, to make a better society. And I truly believe that we can together change the world, because the art is strong power, how you can influence the situation, how can you change the world. And I strongly believe that the power in people is so much stronger than people in the power. So it's just up to you how you will do and what you will gonna do. So thank you for attention.
That's quite a challenge, huh? She is spitting in our faces. Whoa. You never learn to knit, Ria, so. So, I think there will be some questions on this. So, come up. What are you going to do with this lecture?
Oh, there's one question.
Yeah.
Is it okay if it's not exactly a question, rather a comment? Or is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. So this is not really a question, but I just found your speech extremely fresh and lovely. And for me, it's like a very familiar thing right now, because I just quit my job to be able to have the time and the space to do my art. And I was thinking as you were talking how okay, maybe there is no cage, but there is this thing like we adapt to the circumstance of our life, and if it's not motivating and if it's not creative, then we kind of, a part of us adapts to that and it's like, yeah, this is my life now. But something is like, you know, like a little flame. And I was just listening to you and I felt how this little flame needs to be motivated by kind of, to be reminded of we are creative creatures and we need, I mean, it's life to be creative and to have ideas. I mean, ideas come from being alive and feeling and, you know, all that. So thank you. I just wanted to thank you because I just felt that. So yeah.
Thank you. So I think, yeah, it's nice that you can take this risk and you can try to fly out of the cage and to see something. And you will do this. I truly believe you will be successful.
More.
Okay.
Stand up. There's a mic. Yeah.
Okay. Hi. There was this certain bank type thing in Bangladesh. I didn't quite understand how it works. I forgot what the name was like, but
Grameen Bank. Grameen Bank.
How does it function? How did it came to be?
The idea is that those people who is borrowing the money, they are in the same time the owners of the bank, because they are like taking the money, so but in the same time they are afterwards they are paying some interest rate, so that's why how the money is growing in this bank. And in the same time they are like owners. It's not like private bank for two people, it's like a bank for whole society, which gives so it was made with the purpose to help to those people who cannot normally get the loan in the traditional bank because they are poor, but still they also need this opportunity to change their life. So they made this like special bank, but now this special bank has 8 million borrowers and it's a very popular one. So this is how it works. They are taking the money, in the same time they are the owners, and like that way.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah. The microcredit thing is amazing, doing incredible things. So the wife of our king, so Queen Maxima, is an ambassador for the microcredits, and wherever she travels around the world, she is talking about that, and it's proof that it is a real help to change the life of people. So it's an amazing system.
And it works everywhere in the whole world. It was created in Bangladesh, but nowadays it works everywhere, this microcredit movement.
Susanne.
Yes, to this bank funding, I had a question. You need I read once the law in Hungary. You need quite a huge funding capital to fund the bank. How did they do that?
How did they make this bank?
I mean, the funding capital should be very big, as far as I remember. In a case of a bank, you can fund an enterprise much better as a bank, because in the case of a bank there are the law is prescribing quite a big amount of funding capital.
You mean how they
started?
Yeah,
how they started. Yes,
so
exactly.
First of all, it's Bangladesh. The situation is a bit different, and it was 1970s. So again, the situation was a bit different, and so that's how they could start. Actually, nowadays in Europe, of course, it's not possible. It's not so easy, let's say. So the situation in Bangladesh was just different at that time. So that's how they could do this. Nowadays, it wouldn't be so easy, especially in Europe.
More questions or comments? What did you?
About the millennium generation, we have in Germany, we have the problem. It's called Generation Praktikum, generation internship. That a lot of young people who are done with their education, they try to find a job, and they don't get full-time jobs. They have one internship after the other. They have no security about their future and so on. And of course, there are some who try to be self-employed, but if you want to be self-employed, your product has to correspond with the demand. And I think that's also a problem. How do I know the demand? Now, if someone is employed, has a hobby, and he notices his hobby or his interest is corresponds with the demand, and they can become self-employed, that works very well, and then you have a success. But I know of others who fail because there's just no demand.
The answer we can find in the first presentation yesterday, the business plan. Yeah, because of course, first of all, you have to make the research to understand will there be customers who will buy my product. Of course, you can just try, and maybe you will be successful, but it's quite a risk. So it's usually better to make first of all some kind of investigation to understand will it work.
But when I get self-employed and I want to sell a product that comes from my heart, that's the line I should be going. I think it's better to go that direction than to see what is the demand, and now I'll go search for that niche, because it should be more than just having success. It also has to be something that has to do with your heart, your life, your spirit.
I think it can work very well if it's like you have like stable work, and if you have like a hobby, then it can be very good that you can just try and you will look in a practice how it will work. But if it's like your only work, then you have to be more careful. Then you have to make this research maybe before.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Excusez-moi. Ok. Ça, on peut partager. Ok. Merci pour l'exposé.
So thank you for what you
Ma
said.
question, c'est puisque les artistes, ça marche pas bien.
But for the artist, doesn't work very well.
Est-ce que l'accès au crédit pour les artistes est facile?
Is it possible for an artist to get a loan by this bank?
Dans mon contexte en Afrique, c'est
For
difficile
example,
parce que
in Africa, it's very difficult.
les banques ne prêtent pas aux gens qui ne marchent pas.
Because the banks don't give money to people who don't have already a regular job and have money. So.
It was the situation in Bangladesh as well, that these poor people couldn't get the money from the traditional banks. So that's why they were making this Grameen Bank, which was focused on those poor people who want to make their own business. And actually, I don't know so deeply on which these businesses should be focused, but the microfinance movement, it's like for more or less for everybody. That
okay, so if he goes to the Grameen Bank and he says, well, I want to be an artist, please give me money to start, would work?
I cannot give you the answer because it depends from who.
Anyway.
Anyway. So because they are financing those who want to make a small business and in the same time who wants to go for their studies. So I don't know, do they like sort in which field?
So just as an amendment, there are certain platforms for artists to finance their projects, like Kickstarter, for example, or Indiegogo.com. And since we saw a very, well, the funding of, let's say, CD projects or musical projects going down over the years, more and more artists just mobilized their own fan base and told them, okay, I have that new project with the CD and I need money for that. And in return, people get certain part of the project. So if you really, if you are committing, let's say, just the $20 or 15 euros or so for the CD to purchase, you can do that right now, or you can commit to do that. And then the funding grows, and it's even possible to spend for the more wealthy people or so, let's say $1,000 or $2,000, and then have the opportunity to be in a concert somehow, or to be mentioned on the CD itself or so. So as soon as you have a certain fan base, then it's much easier to mobilize money now than it was, let's say, 5 years ago or so. So you just have to look for a Kickstarter or certain, or just Google for funding for artists.
You can, you can Google as well on the word crowdfunding, how that works and operates. And I know many artists have made their projects possible through a form of crowdfunding. So in the case of what Rie and I have been doing for many years, we have a foundation, and if you give money to that foundation, it is tax deductible. Basically, it's saying that then the state will pay 50% back to you. So through the years, we were able to do many projects because people gave a donation, and then the people giving a donation got 50% back from the state. So hey, be smart. Use the possibilities that your governments are giving to you. Other remarks and comments, yeah?
Nowadays it seems very hard for artists to survive and to produce an album. But my husband is a full-time musician, and I didn't know it was possible. We're from Holland. There are subsidies. Right now he's working on an album, and they have to fill in a lot of forms and hand in music. But they got funding of 9,000 euros to make their album right now. And like 2 years ago, they also got a couple of €1,000 funding to do a tour in Canada. And they're not a very well-known band or anything. They're just starting for a couple of years. So I didn't even know that was possible, but there are subsidies. You just have to find the right forms or, I don't know, websites or whatever, but they did get a funding, and that's very remarkable for such a small country, Holland. So it is out there.
Another example is that is related to some regulation of the Dutch society, the Dutch system, that in some cases an individual artist cannot get money, let's say, from the city council. But if you organize yourself as an association, so a collaboration project with a formal legal name, then you get money. Hey, then why aren't you then making associations? I mean, that's what you do then on a local level. So there are many examples like that the system can work for you and not against you.
Yes, I'd like to give another example of helping each other making money. The performing artist, that's the artist who is on stage, is getting the most exposure, even more than an artist who is painting. So what we did is, we took the Christian painters and people who make like painting, and we linked them up with artists who's going to make video clips and all that. So the painting were coming in the video clips, and now the artists that we are helping, they are selling their painting. So I'm giving you an example how we can work together about cross-branding. You know, because what I see is in the world is that the artists are creating their own island. My Facebook, my Instagram. But what do you do with it? Nothing. Just posting how great your album is. So why don't you post a painting and tell your followers, like, you can buy this. And then you take a 10% commission. But you will help another artist to sell their painting, to sell the product, to sell that shoe, to sell that clothing line, to sell everything, because you, as an artist who is on stage, you have the exposure, but you don't use it enough to expose others. So that's what I'm doing to help other artists to get seen and sell and do branding, because we as a Christian artist, we do less branding. We don't do branding. So I want to empower you to get known by to work with branding. It helps you a lot. Branding and syncing, they call it.
Another example is, I know several musicians and singers who made their own CDs based on the fact that they told their fan clubs, okay, I need money to make this production possible, so you donate a minimum of €10 or €15, so small amounts. In return, you will get a CD. So basically what they did, they moved forward in time the sales of the product. They got, I know some cases, they got 10, 15, 20, 25,000 euro together. And after that, they all got the CDs. So be smart. Things are that as well possible with paintings and etchings and dance productions. So we have to change our mentality a little bit here and there. I think that was the essential of this morning of Lasmar, to explain to us, see a problem as a challenge to change the problem into an opportunity. I think, if I put it together, that's it. Huh?
That's correct.
We want to thank you for your great contribution. Again, a piece of art. Jill. Jill, where are you? Our Jill. How you've been doing?
How have I been going? I'm here. I'm in one piece. This is good.
You are kicking and alive, or can I kick you?
Alive and kicking, we would say, not kicking and alive.
That's the reason I said it this way. You know. I'm stupid Dutchman. No, you're not. But I have a French name. Be careful. Yeah. We are dangerous.
We are very dangerous. But no, I'm good, thank you. Great. Everyone okay? Should we stand up? Just turn around. Say hello to somebody you haven't said hello to yet. If there's somebody new next to you or behind you or in front of you, introduce yourselves. How are we doing? Are we all right? Are you all right, Sigga? I've got a microphone. I just need 2 more chairs. 2 at the moment, and then later on after the coffee I'll need more. Yeah. Well, I'm having a family, so I'll do it later on with one. Yeah, but not now. It'll be after coffee. That's fine. Wonderful. Okay, let's keep moving. We've got some interviews to do. And it's my pleasure to invite Peter Smith to the stage. So, Peter, can you come up, please? Let's give him a round. There's a microphone there.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Okay. Have a seat. Thank you. So, Peter, how long have you been coming to Christian Artists?
Since about 2000, I think.
Since about 2000, so quite some time. It's been to everyone since then?
Except once.
Say again?
Except one.
Except one. Okay, so an absolute daddy of Christian Artists, really, for 15 years worth. That's great. So good to have you. And a fellow northerner, because I'm from the north of England. Do we know anyone else who's from the north of England here? I hail from Cumbria. And Peter, you hail from Manchester, don't you? Mm-hmm. So if we speak a bit funny sometimes, that's why, because we're from the north of the country. But it's really good to have you here on stage, and really good to have you here as well, because you didn't get here till yesterday.
And pleased to be here. Yeah.
Okay, and can you just tell us what your art form is, Peter, for those who are not familiar with you? I mean, I know you're well known here, but there's many people who don't know you, so just tell us what your art form is first.
Yeah, I trained as a painter, fine art.
Okay.
And moved into printmaking as well, so BA in fine art and a MA in printmaking.
Okay, wonderful.
Doing a lot of wood engraving, relief printing at the moment.
Okay, that's great.
That's the form.
And what's quite interesting, we've been talking a lot about being self-employed this morning, and given some direction in that, which has been fantastic. But actually, for you, that's not been your story. You've been employed for most of your artistic career. And can you just tell us?
Yes, a wage slave. Yes.
As a wage slave, did you say? Can you just tell us, a little bit about where you started in your artistic career?
Well, how I got into it. I suppose the situation was different back in the 1960s, but you graduate as a fine artist, and you realise that you're probably not going to be Picasso or Rembrandt. There's a good chance you won't be. So what do you do then, you know? Mm-hmm. Do you just pack it all in because you can't be famous and great, or do you just think, I've got to carry on because I enjoy doing this and it's important and I can do it, at least to a certain extent. I'd never ever planned to go into teaching, never. That was one thing I was not going to do. But when I didn't get onto a postgraduate course and my friends did, I was a bit disappointed. And I thought, I don't want to start work yet. I could do the teacher training year, and that I'd get another qualification. It might be useful in the future.
Okay. So
I did a postgraduate in art education and found that actually I quite enjoyed teaching, to my surprise. Okay. So I was faced with a kind of a choice. At that time, I just got married, far too young perhaps. Okay. My wife was still in the middle of a degree, no income. And you look at your work and think, I might sell the odd thing, but the odd thing is not enough, is it? Mm. So that's how I ended up in teaching.
Okay.
In secondary schools to start with, but I came across fellow art teachers who were kind of obsessed with this romantic image of the painter and the artist. That if you weren't doing it all the time, you weren't it wasn't worth doing it.
Okay.
So they lived in a kind of a dreadful situation, hating teaching because it was stopping them doing what they really wanted. Mm-hmm. So they weren't happy in either situation. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, this is stupid because it was a free choice. I mean, no one forced me to be a teacher. And I came across a verse in, I think it's in Titus. Paul says in the King James Version, let ours maintain good works for necessary uses. And I thought, oh, good works, that's like helping people across the road, you know, just good works. But I looked at the New Testament Greek and found that good works actually means honourable trades. So what Paul was saying was, look, you've got to have an honourable trade, do something to earn your own living so you're not a burden on other people. And I thought that seemed like a good plan. So, yes, teaching, as far as I could see, was an honourable trade, and it was worth doing. So how do you maintain the other things? Well, just because you're doing one thing, it doesn't mean the other things, I'm sorry, are a hobby, yeah? Because you're multi-talented, you got, how do you find space to do the other thing? You admit you won't do as much, yeah? But you've got to find a space for it. So I ended up in teaching full and part-time for 40 years. And alongside that, kept the other thing going, exhibiting, working, finding a way to work in a scale that was suitable. I also found it good because I'm now a fellow of the Royal Society of Painter Printmakers since I retired, and I've been on the council for 3 years, helping them out, and looking at other fellow printmakers. And I know how they make a living. I mean, it's quite straightforward. What you do is you find a niche in the market for a popular product, and then you do it again and again and again. And you become known for this particular art form or way things do. You get yourself trapped in a manner and a style, and you can't escape from it. And I just wasn't interested in that. Yes, I want to make a product that someone else could have. I'm working for my neighbours, not just for myself. So it's not a selfish thing, but not trapped in that kind of cycle. So the teaching was very positive in that sense. It gave me the freedom I needed to be more exploratory, to do things I wanted to do, while admitting that the market for my work is small.
Okay,
but they do exist. Yeah, and since I retired 2010, the sales from the society I belong to has got its own gallery, so it's kind of slightly at tangent to the commercial gallery system. There's not that pressure, but they do sell work. So I've found, yes, since 2010, I've sold enough to pay the rent on my studio and have enough for materials.
Okay.
Although it does get down to pencils sometimes. Yeah. But you keep going.
That's really
so
helpful.
That's how you ended up in teaching.
Really positive. And just because, there's for a lot of people here, there's that tension point between doing what they really want to do and actually finding something that will pay the bills. But actually teaching, like you say, and printmaking, both are honourable trades. But one was actually going to give you, I guess, the salary to be able to move forward and have your daily bread. But could you just share with us some of the joys of your teaching? Because you shared with me last night just where the teaching side has taken you, and actually there have been some quite wonderful surprises in terms of your interaction with students and the range of people you've connected with, and how that's kind of enriched your life, really.
Yeah. I suppose I must have taught a lot of people in 40 years. And still in touch with some of my ex-students and work with them and things like that. But I did 8 years in secondary and found that aspects of secondary education rather claustrophobic and limiting and so on. So I took 2 years out. I was given an Arts Council grant for a fellowship. So I had 2 years doing some painting, and then went into further education, which in England is 16-year-olds up to adults, and found that it was not quite higher education, although we did end doing degree work, but it was young people who needed a second chance. That especially people who are makers are not well catered for in the academic system. If you're not academic, if you're not good with words and number, then you're regarded as stupid. And so we're getting lots of young people who'd had this experience through 6 years of school, feeling made worthless. So in further education, you could grab these people, bring them in and say, no, we believe in making things. Making is thinking. This is the place for you. So that was a joy to be seeing the turnaround in their state of mind.
That's fantastic.
But I discovered that I kind of changed jobs about every 5 years for a while.
Okay.
And then went to Kingston College, and a very clever principal who would, when he sensed you were restless, he'd give you something else interesting to do. So I ended up there 26 years. And what I discovered was that sometimes it takes 10 years to effect a change.
Okay.
And it was the very first time that I was in a position to employ the people, because they gave me a free hand with employing part-time staff.
Okay.
So we started off in a tower block with, I think, about 4 rooms and 4 or 5 teachers. And when I retired, I had my own art school, site manager, with 50 staff and 800 students, and special needs courses right through to the 3 degrees that we did.
Okay.
So it was interesting to be part of that growth. You realise it had been your life's work without knowing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's amazing.
So interesting lessons along the way, really.
Yeah, and quite interesting that you were going right from people with special needs at one sense of the spectrum, and then going right up to degree level. I mean, that's quite a wide span of education, isn't it? With different educational needs as well. I mean, how did you actually manage that?
Well, it's find the right people.
Yeah.
That was the good thing. But there was a strange sense of power when you find that you can employ people. So I was always involved in panels when it was permanent staff, but for part-timers, when I started, if I got a gap, I could find somebody. I interviewed them, gave them a job. So around that time, I started to wonder, how does someone who's not got teaching on their CV ever get their first teaching job? So I vowed that every year I'd try and bring in 2 people that I'd come across who I thought were potentially good teachers who'd never had an experience. And you can you speak to someone for 20 minutes and you learn pretty soon whether they're going to be a teacher or not. It's a strange thing, but you can sense it in the way they talk and what they do. Sometimes you make mistakes, but most of the time it works. And what you need is, you need the lifeblood of young people and their mistakes and enthusiasm to complement the permanent staff. And sometimes they were obviously, say, graphic designers involved in their own graphics work, so they'll bring in the real world in there as well. So you give them a chance, and you know that they'll use you as a stepping stone. They get you on the CV, and then a year later they'll move on to something better, which is great. That's what you're trying to do for them. But surprisingly, a large number stayed with me for 20-odd years. They just stayed with us and became permanent employees, and some managers with me as well. So that was interesting.
Yeah. It sounds like you're a gracious and affirming and encouraging person to work with as well, which is probably what a lot of these people were really needing. And that's wonderful, and a life's work, as you say, of incredible things, actually. What would you say have been some of the learning points for you along the way, things that you kind of really consciously were aware of that, actually, that was a challenge, and I had to find a way forward with that?
A lot of things, really. I mean, one of the first things I learned was that when I first went into secondary education, there seemed to be a lot of shouting at young people. They're always being shouted at, and it slowly dawned on you that these young people were used to being shouted at by adults. And it's like the second eyelid on a crocodile comes over. There's an adult shouting, and all these is duck below the parapet till the shouting stopped. You've not been communicating, So you stop shouting, you start talking quietly and gently. So kindness is the key, and listening to actually what is being said, rather than jump to conclusions. So that was the kind of one thing I learned, and also a quiet answer turns away wrath, from Proverbs. That really, really works. That when people are angry, if you get angry, you fuel their anger. If you're quiet, it gradually subsides. And that works especially with, I mean, it's a stressful situation. So you'd have staff who'd go off the deep end about something. They come into your office screaming and shouting, and you just say, sit down, tell me all about it. And you let it all out. And then say, right, so what can we do to make it better? You know, that kind of thing. There was, and of course you take on staff that you know have got flaws, because we're not all perfect. There's one chap who was, he was running my digital arts degree, and he was absolutely fantastic. I mean, he loved the whole thing, and he'd do anything for students, but he hated the institution. He's like a little anarchist in his own way. So what you got was, you wanted the good things, but you had to live with the bad things, but you had to control the bad things. And once some very trivial thing occurred, And he wrote me the most horrendous letter. I mean, it was vile, you know? I mean, I could have took him to an employment tribunal for the insults, yeah? And you think, well, how am I going to deal with this? So, okay, he's hidden behind a letter. Let's get him to say this to me. Yeah, so I got in my office and I said, I've got your letter. Can you read it to me? And he said, what do you mean? I said, just tell me. Read it to me. There you go. And he got halfway through it and he said, I'm terribly sorry. And I said, well, you've got to be careful, because if I was a different kind of person, we could go into trade unions now, and we don't want that. All you got to do is come and talk to me. Yeah. Most things can be fixed. Yeah. So is that, I mean, you try to create that. I mean, the greatest joy I had, I think, in teaching, well, the most exciting opportunity was that I was scattered over all these rooms, and we got a new principal who, you can't do things without people who support you from higher up. Yeah. And for some reason, he took a liking to me or something. He used to call me the John Bunyan of the college. But he, I'd driven past this annex we got, which was an old school from 1910. Okay. And I knew it was a fabulous kind of Edwardian building used by motor vehicle engineers, a quarter of a mile away from our tower block, which was a horrendous building. And I heard that they were going to move the motor vehicle out, and that was going to become empty. Okay. So I just said to my head department, can I have it? Because we're running out of space. Can I have it as an art school? And he said, I'm meeting the principal in the pub tonight. Do you want to come and tell him? So I said, yeah, okay. And he said, Pete's got an idea. And I said, can I have Richmond Road Annex? Okay. And he said, what a great idea, he said. I'll start an art school when people are closing them down. He said, you've got it. I said, no, I've never been in there. It's just too late. I'm ringing the vice president. Yeah. So suddenly I found I've been given this building to populate. So to suddenly have your own site, which was focused totally on art, design, media, you could create your own culture. So the aim was to make it a safe family place for the staff and the students. And the other thing I've learned as well, so that was very exciting. He kept me there to do that. The other thing was you realise you got to invert the triangle. So the principal is not the top of the pyramid and the minions below. And so as me as head of school and site manager, I'm not the top. I'm really the bottom. Yeah, because the top of the pyramid is what happens in the classroom with the teacher and the students. And everything else exists to support that moment. And if you're not doing that, then why are you there? So I try to think in that kind of way. What I've got to do is, whatever I can do, I've got to protect the space in the classroom. Okay. And preserve that so they feel secure and they can get on with the job. So that was the kind of... And I like the thought of thankless tasks, that the timetabling was an absolute nightmare. If you think the number of rooms and special facilities, it would take me all summer, anyway, over 100 pages of A4 to get the timetable right. And I rewrote it every year from scratch because things change. I didn't want it to get habitual. Because I realized that I was writing people's lives for 12 months, the students and the staff. And you had to get it right because they had to live it, not me. And you knew that you succeeded when no one thanked you and no one mentioned it because it just worked. Yeah. So that was the aim. No one knows it's happening. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So it's like that's how you can be of service to the people you're working with, and also trying to find opportunities for people so they'll stay if there's work to do and they're valued. So if someone can do a job, then you try and find ways they can do it better or give them opportunities to become a course leader or move on a bit. And the biggest thing I did, which was quite scary, was to hand over the budget, because if you hold controlling the budget, you're in control, are you? You control the money, yeah? And I'd just been given a deputy head, a fabulous Scottish lady who had spotted at another college and thought, if the minute you want another job, I want you at Kingston College. And the opportunity came, and she worked with me for 12 years. And it's great to have a colleague like that you just get on with and we work together. But she knew that I hated the money side. I can't count, I just hate it. And I could see her hovering for a couple of years. And I said, so what about all this budget thing? And she said, well, do you know, don't tell anybody, but I used to work at a bookies, and I love money and counting. And I said, okay then, so you want to take over the budget? Why not? Let's do that then, because you love it and I don't.
Yeah.
And I said, there's only one rule. I said, I'm not going to interfere because you do it your way, but I want to be the first to know if things are going wrong.
Okay.
Apart from that, just get on with it.
Yeah.
And that was such a relief. You know that. So it's kind of learning to share things and trust other people to get and do a better job than you.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's great. And you've given us a real, I think, insight into the relational dimension of working with others, but also kind of what it's like a little bit to be the employer and from that angle, because obviously we've been thinking a lot more about what is it like to be employed or what is it like to be self-employed, but you've given us that sort of insight into just how to manage people, how to care for people, how to get alongside people, and how to just think about the priorities that are important. I've just seen the time, but so I think we'll have to wrap up. But perhaps if there are just one or two questions that people might have for Peter, that those of you who are in education, those of you who are thinking about being in education or in a teaching capacity, does anyone have a question for Peter? Okay, right, give me a moment.
Hiya, thank you for what you've shared. You mentioned about giving people a second chance, and that if people can't add up or write, they're often thought of as stupid. And I guess my question is almost about the flip side of that. So if someone can like add up and read and write, and particularly if they can do those things well, the fact that they may be gifted in arts can be overlooked, and they can be pushed down a different path than maybe one that suits them best. And I guess maybe I've got two questions. One, what can be done to stop that? By people in education, but by all of us, whatever role we are playing. And secondly, what advice or support would you give to someone who regrets the path that they've gone down? Does that make sense?
Yeah. The first question is a kind of an impossible one, in the sense that I've fought all my teaching career against the very attitude that you were talking about. That it's endemic in the situation, in the way education is organised in the UK, certainly, that intelligence is linked with those academic skills, not with making. That's seen as a secondary thing. And certainly the arts are seen as something that's like the icing on the cake rather than something essential. All you can do is keep fighting your corner, really, and demonstrating that this is intelligence, that makers are intelligent people. Yeah? One of the things the last thing I did was write a degree course that was validated by King's University, where I was able to write the course I would have wanted to do as I was a young person. And that was based around the idea of making is thinking. So that's not answer your question really, it's just said it's a difficult one. Sir Ken Robinson, who does a lot about art education, then he's very into these kind of ways of thinking. Yeah. Your second question was how, well, the answer is it's never. You can always change. Yeah, that you can always backtrack and do something different. You mustn't feel trapped because you've gone down one route. We had a girl come to us who'd gone to the local grammar school with very strict uniform, and those kind of strict ways of thinking, and very academic. And she'd been doing sewing with her mother since she was a child. She loved fashion, right? So she started dressing in very outlandish ways at the school, adapting her school uniform, dyeing her hair, that kind of anarchic thing. And life was getting very uncomfortable for us. She came down the road to us halfway through a A-level and said, "Can I come to Kingston College?" Yeah, and I was looking at this apparition in front of me. dress to impress and to challenge. And I just said, yeah, come here, yeah. And of course, she came outrageously dressed, and none of us mentioned it, and even said, that looks great. And gradually, kind of, her dress sense toned down, became less confrontational, but still fascinating. And we got her into fashion, and she's running her own fashion business now. So she took the choice that she realized that wasn't the place for her, yeah. But down the road might be.
Just one more question.
Just a very quick word of, let's say, testimony and thanks, just to kind of emphasize how important things that teachers do in people's lives. In about 2006, I believe, our son was graciously allowed to participate, even though here at sea, even though he was only 15 years old at the time, and he went to some of Peter's workshops, and as a result of Peter's encouragement, he realized he actually did have capacity, and it was indeed Peter's kindness and the word of encouragement that allowed our son to then go on to study design and finish his coursework in design, and is now successfully employed in his field. And I just wanted to say thank you to Peter and to all of the teachers that take their time to invest in people here during these few days. It's not just a few days, it's life-changing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. Great. Well, thank you, Peter. It feels appropriate to say well done, good and faithful servant, for your many years of service and your years of encouragement. So another hand for Peter.
Just one last thing to say. 2010, retired, free at last.
Great, thank you. Bless you, bless you. That's great. Oh. Really good. Well, some really helpful things there, and obviously Peter will be around if you'd like to speak with him more. Well, my next guest is Nikos from Greece, and I'm not going to say his surname yet because we're all going to learn how to say it because it's really difficult. So welcome to the stage, Nikos. Hey, good to see you. Great. Have a seat then. So Nikos, please, how do we pronounce your surname?
Well, the Greek pronunciation is Papadogiorgos.
Papadogiorgos.
Yeah, it's very good. It's not that difficult.
Say it again one more time.
Papadogiorgos.
Okay, and Papadogiorgos. Oh, that wasn't too bad. Every time I looked at it, I thought, I can't say that.
It's not that difficult, actually. Yeah, it's a combination of the name Yorgos, which is George.
Okay.
And Papa is priest in Greek. So probably in my past, in the family's past, there was maybe a priest. I don't know.
Okay.
That's how these names are.
There's a story behind the name. Yeah, that's
sense.
fine. We'll try and say it again at the end, see if we can still remember how to say it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being with us this morning. It's really good to have you here. Yeah.
To be with you.
Thank you. And you would probably describe yourself, as we've been talking about employed and self-employed this morning, a self-employed artist.
Yes.
Yeah. Could you just tell us what you do, and just so people have an idea of your art form?
Yes, I am a musician, pianist, composer, and orchestrator. Actually, I should say first composer, because that's where I spend most of my time.
Okay.
And orchestrator and pianist.
That's
I started as a pianist.
Okay.
My journey in music.
Yes.
Started through the piano. A bit late, in the sense that I didn't know when I was still at school. I didn't have a clue about what I wanted to do. And I took the decision to become a musician after high school.
Okay.
So I started, I don't have this kind of story that we find so often. I started learning the piano when I was 5 years old or 4 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
I started when I was 18 or 19 or something like that.
Okay.
So I have been a little bit under pressure of time since then.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, in a sense.
Yeah. So you came later on in life to really your art form and your discovery of that.
I think so. But then I became I took it seriously, and I studied for I started studying the piano, and then okay, excuse me, in English it's not that easy for me, but what I'm trying to say is that there came a moment when I had to go to the army. Okay. And that was an interruption, serious interruption, because at that time it was 21 months.
Okay.
In Greece, it's a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah.
In parallel, I did. I went to a school for film direction.
Okay.
And when I came out of the Navy, the Army, which was the Navy in my case, I had to choose between music and film.
Okay.
And I chose music.
Okay. Okay. And then where did your journey take you from there?
Yeah, then I started working as a pianist, and even before I went to the Navy, I was about 22 years old.
Okay.
That time that I'm referring to.
Okay.
So I worked as a pianist, playing in different venues, not classical music, playing Greek and international stuff like, well, let's say Greek mainly, but also some jazz, step by step, and again late. A little bit, that's how I feel it, how I experience it. A little bit late in life, I discovered that I can make music. I can make my own music.
Okay.
When I was 29.
Okay.
So that attracted me a lot.
Okay.
It started as a game, as a teacher in a school where I was teaching piano. Asked me if I could set to music something very simple, some lyrics for the kids. For a celebration, and it was quite fun. You know, I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
And this came together with the discovery of this software that we can use on computers that allows you to record something and then record on top of it and record again. So this kind of thing was unknown to me up to that point, more or less.
Yeah.
And when it came in my life, I was so amazed by it that I could do that.
Yes.
You know, I could play the piano, but I could also play a flute, fake flute, but still, you know, and then add to that. And so I started developing that.
Yeah.
I started studying. I don't have a formal education in composition. Well, I don't know if I should stop here.
No, this is fascinating because we're kind of tracking your journey, which is quite helpful to see how you've got to really to where you are now, because now you would describe yourself as a composer and arranger, and that is the bulk of your work.
Yes.
Are you working solo, or are you working in collaboration with other people? What are the kind of projects that you're actually doing, so we get an idea?
I am at a crossroads at the moment.
Okay.
I can say a little bit about what I have been doing and what is going on now.
Yes.
And
please do.
So I have worked. I started. As I said, I realized that I can compose music, but this doesn't mean that I was a professional whatever. So it took some time to feel confident that I can do that in a professional way.
Yeah.
And I started seeing myself as a multimedia composer, someone who can compose music for picture, for documentaries, TV spots, websites, I don't know, all kinds of stuff. So I was lucky in the sense that although I was not experienced, I found ways to work. I was quite courageous in approaching people.
Okay.
And I had a little demo, some kind of demo, not much to show, but I was, I don't know how you say this in English.
Confident?
Yeah, you could say it like that.
Bold?
So I knocked on doors, and some doors opened. And so I got into making music for CDs that accompany children's, books for children.
Okay.
Imagine illustrated books that have a story, which is also narrated, and there are songs, and so it's kind of audio theater stuff.
Okay.
So I worked a lot in that direction.
Okay.
I did some documentaries.
Okay.
And music for public events.
Okay.
All that was going very well until the financial crisis.
Okay.
Stroke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, for example, the company that I worked a lot with,
Yes.
I did the documentaries, I did some public events and stuff like that, closed. And the people who owned it went to the UK to find work.
Yeah.
Not any longer their own work, but
Yeah.
to be employed, to
Right.
you know, to be that was the start for me.
Yes.
I mean, as I said, multimedia composer.
Yeah, yeah.
But I have this. How do you say this? This approach that guides me to. I mean, my belief is that one should always try to improve. Obviously, I mean, it's not my belief. It's I think it's everybody's approach. But I mean, by studying.
Yeah.
Continuing studying, continuing digging.
Yes.
Okay, so studying, in my case, orchestration. I was and still do take scores of other composers, and I study them. So why am I saying this? I got into the process of discovering myself more and more, my musical self.
Yes.
And this never stops.
Okay.
It gets always deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
So there came a moment that I discovered that I have another side, which is not making music for pictures, for picture, excuse me.
Yeah.
But or music that accompanies some kind of action.
Yeah.
But making I went in the direction of songwriting.
Okay.
Setting to music, lyrics, and poetry.
Okay.
And there, it is a completely different world.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
And this has attracted me a lot.
Okay.
So I keep on studying the scores.
Yeah.
But that's, in my case, if I should or if I could give you a, how do you say this? Put it a little bit in boxes, you know, organize it. I should I could say that I have one side which is Nikos composing music when as a commission, you know. They come to me and they say, we want you to do 2 minutes of such kind of music.
Yes.
Which I enjoy a lot.
Yeah.
But there is this other side, which is much more free.
Yeah.
I can read. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes, you're right. Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So we take it from the beginning?
No, but probably what would be really helpful was, because we're kind of, it's really, really interesting sort of seeing how you're diversifying, how you've been adapting and I guess discovering new things on your journey. But just what is the crossroads? Because you mentioned that. What are the crossroads that you find yourself at now in light of adapting, changing, and the financial crisis that you were in Greece, particularly?
I can mention that, for example, I left Greece recently, and I moved to Paris.
Okay.
So that already gives you the sense of. It doesn't have to do with because everybody thinks, and this is normal, that you went there because you try to find work.
Yeah.
Of course, things are difficult in Greece and in Athens, where I used to live until recently, but. I still have work in Greece. That's not the issue. The issue is that artistically, I am, well, I don't want to be too dramatic, but it's really disappointing back in Greece. So the crossroads that I mentioned has to do with both the practical side of it, the fact that I left the place where I grew up and where my friends are and my family and so on, and moved to new city, another city, in the hopes that I will be able to communicate my work better there, and especially the side of my work that I was just the second part, you know, the songwriting, which is not it's not pop stuff, so it's not very how do you say this in English? I'm sorry. Easy for the ear.
Yeah.
For the
it's not easy listening.
Yeah, it's not easy listening. So let me put it like this: the financial crisis back in Greece and I think any financial crisis is never only financial. It has other aspects, and one of them is the cultural side. So it's a cultural crisis as well.
Okay.
which means that it's always more difficult to find an audience if you are not doing completely mainstream and unfortunately sometimes very cheap stuff.
Yeah, okay.
So I cannot do that.
No.
And I decided to leave the, how do you call it, safety?
Okay,
Safety of,
of safety of your own country and culture.
Yeah. And move to a different place and try to be creative there.
Okay.
I still have my projects going on back in Greece.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can work. I have a home studio. I set it up in some sense in there where I live now, and I continue work in the same manner.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have the hope that, you know, the French people, the level, the cultural level of the French people is probably better. How do you say this? Suited.
More suited to
more
the
suited
kind of
to
work,
what the kind,
the kind of
work
pieces that you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great. And well, I think that's been a real lesson in kind of flexibility, adaptability. We've seen how you've, been growing and finding, like you say, your artistic self, which is exciting.
That's what I would like to emphasize. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. That is the thing that has come out, has really come out as part of your story. If there was one thing that one lesson that you've learned for anybody else who might find themselves in a similar situation to you, what would that lesson be, or what would that piece of advice be for anyone on a similar journey to you?
Well, I don't know if I would say just one. One that comes in mind is exactly this: that I mentioned, to always improve.
Yeah.
Always dig deeper.
Yeah.
To whatever it is that you are doing.
Yeah.
And try to study what other people are doing.
Okay.
Try to discover.
Yeah.
More about what you can do, about who you are artistically. There are surprises, I think, very often from what I've read from other people's experiences. And on my, you know, for me, I could say that I have had a low estimation of my artistic. I'm not saying that, you know, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that it's not that I'm good, but that I am better than I thought. You know, I put myself in a place,
at this
in
level,
a level,
and actually you're.
And I discovered that, you know, why do you put yourself there? You can do this, you can do that. Go on and do it, and share it with people. And you can see where that takes you. So
the importance of that ongoing personal development, artistic development. Keep moving forward in what you're doing.
And but allow me to add that this is related to our faith, or to my faith and to our faith. I think I mean, it has to do with safety. It has to do with whether you want to put yourself in a place, in a position where you feel safe and stay there for the rest of your life. Sometimes I'm not that experienced, so whatever I say, I want to say it very carefully and respectfully. I might be wrong, but sometimes you need to get out of that place of safety, and we are in a position to do that because we have somebody, we have the Lord who is holding our hand. That's what the Bible says. So that doesn't mean that we play games with life or with Him. You know, we don't want to be foolish, but at the same time, sorry, excuse me. At the same time, I don't think it's healthy to live with fear, which might restrict you. You know, might restrict your creativity. I don't know if that makes sense, especially the way I describe it. In Greek, I would have said it in a better way, but I'm trying.
But so essentially, you're saying we have God. We have God with us.
Yes, I mean the promises are there to be taken seriously. It's not a theory. The gospel, the whole thing is not a theory, obviously, and it defines who we are if we take it seriously. And we should immerse ourselves in all, and this includes other sides Not I'm referring now to creativity and to trust to God, and but also we heard, for example, from Lynn the other I think yesterday about the family. This the importance, I mean the contrast between trying to do your thing and not forgetting
that you have
people who care for you, and that sort of thing. There are other sides that come from our faith that give us or show us the path to walk, how to balance things. Another thing would be renewing our mind. I mean, you don't expect to find in the Bible verses that tell you how to do music, how to, to what kind of harmony to use, but you find principles. And one of them, as an example, is renewing, the renewing of the mind, which, of course, Paul mentions it in a different context, sure, but we can apply it to making art, I think.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. It would be lovely to have you here on stage a lot longer to explain more, but it's been a real pleasure to have your story and have something of your artistic journey, and I hope you'll make yourself available if people have further questions, but I'm just aware that it's nearly coffee time, so
we have to stop.
Thank you very much, Nikos.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Lovely. Bless you. Bless you. Thank you.
Okay, the next interview we'll do after coffee, because let's have coffee and please be back in 20 minutes.